Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trades Talk Tuesday. I am your host, Pop Culture Mechanic. You can just call me Pop for short. And if you're new to the stream, this is where we talk about the skilled trades, what are available, what are the occupations you can do, how to get into them, what to expect, and just maybe hear a few stories from myself about things I've seen and projects I've been a part of. So, as I so often do, I usually like to start off with a little bit of news out of industry because you can usually tell how well your economy is doing by reading the headlines and looking into the stories in industry. So let's do that. I'm going to this window. There we go. There we go. All right. So this is from Plant Magazine, and they talk a lot about manufacturing from all sorts of sectors of the economy. So let's see how things are doing out there. I'm going to go back to before I went on holidays. That was the 19th. You'll have to excuse me. I've got a little bit of a sore throat, so I'll be drinking some nice tea with honey and lemon to try to help soothe the old sore throat. Back on August 19th, Japan's nuclear plants are short of storage for spent fuel. A remote town could have the solution. As we all know, or we should know, that when using nuclear power, you are going to have spent nuclear rods, which you must dispose of properly. Otherwise, they leach into the ground, poison your drinking water, and then people start losing their hair. So hopefully they have a place where they can dispose of these properly and not just try to dump them in the ocean. Well, let's read over this one and see what it says. Tokyo, a Japanese town, said Friday it has agreed to a geological study to determine its suitability as an interim storage site for spent nuclear fuel. Kaminoseki, a small town in the southwestern prefecture of Yamaguchi, said it would accept the offer of a survey of Chugoku Electric Power Company, one of two major utility operators along with Kansai Electric Power Company, whose spent fuel storage pools are almost full. The Japanese government is promoting the greater use of nuclear power as a low-carbon energy source, but the country's nuclear plants are running out of storage capacity. The problem stems from Japan's stalled nuclear fuel recycling program to process plutonium, or reprocess plutonium from spent fuel for reuse. The government has continued to pursue the program despite serious technical setbacks. A plutonium-burning Monju reactor failed and is being decommissioned, while the launch of the Rokasho reprocessing plant in northern Japan has been delayed for almost 30 years. So if it's been delayed for 30 years, are they really serious about it? Do they really care? I call that into question. You know, you get something that takes 30 years to get done. After the meltdown of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in 2011, many reactors were temporarily taken offline and their restarts delayed, helping to reduce the spent fuel stockpile. However, when Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's government decided to reverse a phase-out and maximize nuclear power as clean energy, concerns over the lack of storage space were rekindled. Earlier this month, Chugoku put forward a proposal to build a storage facility jointly with Kansai Electric, but the plan was met by angry protests from residents who surrounded the mayor and yelled at him. That's always funny when people are getting in the politician's face. They need that once in a while. Chugoku Electric's plan to build a nuclear power plant in Kaminoseki has been stalled for more than a decade since the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, delaying subsidies for the remote town whose population is aging and shrinking. The town will only get poorer if we just keep waiting, Kaminoseki Mayor Tetsuo Nishi told a televised news conference Friday. We should do whatever is available now. Kansai Electric, Japan's largest nuclear plant operator, is urgently seeking additional storage for spent fuel. The cooling pools at its plants are more than 80% full. The company pledged to find a potential interim storage site by the end of this year. About 19,000 tons of spent fuel, a byproduct of nuclear power generation, is stored at power plants across Japan, taking up about 80% of their storage capacity, according to the Economy and Industry Ministry. The continuation of spent fuel reprocessing program and the delay have only added to Japan's already large plutonium stockpile, raising international concern. Japan also lacks a final repository for high-level nuclear waste. An intermediate facility is designed to keep nuclear spent fuel in dry casks for decades until it is moved to a reprocessing or to a final repository. Repository, that's just a fancy word for hole in the ground. I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to do. They call it deep welling. I'm sure they're going to just try that. Experts say it is a much safer option than keeping it uncovered cooling pools at their plants. If the storage is actually built, it will be the second such facility in Japan. The only other one is in Mutsu, near Rakosho, which is reserved for Tokyo Electric Power Company and a smaller utility. Well, let's hope they can get this sorted out. I mean, if anything, Japan has to come up with something to reprocess their plutonium. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster. They're waiting way too long to get this taken care of. Get on it, Japan. Make it happen. Let's see. What is next? Emerging economies are pushing to end the dollar's dominance, but what's the alternative? Oh, yeah. That's because the American dollar has always been the reserve currency, but I have a bad feeling it's going to be the yuan, Chinese yuan. This is from Abuja, Nigeria. Business has vanished at Kingsley Odaf's clothing shop in Nigeria's capital, forcing him to lay off 3 employees. One culprit for his troubles stands out. The U.S. dollar's strength against the Nigerian currency, the naira, has pushed the price of garments and other foreign goods beyond the reach of local consumers. A bag of imported clothes costs 3 times what it did 2 years ago. The price these days is running around 350,000 naira, or $450. There are no sales anymore because people have to eat first before thinking of buying clothes, Odaf said. Across the developing world, many countries are fed up with America's dominance of the global financial system, especially the power of the dollar. They will air their grievances next week as the BRICS bloc of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa meet with other emerging market countries in Johannesburg, South Africa. But griping about King Dollar is easier than actually deposing the de facto world currency. The dollar is by far the most used currency in global business and has shrugged off past challenges to its preeminence. That is only because it is used for oil. It's called the petrodollar. They use American dollars to buy oil. So that is why things are hard to shake off the American currency, because nobody will buy or trade in anything else. They'll only use American dollars. In case you didn't know. Where did I leave off here? Despite repeated talk of the BRICS countries rolling out their own currency, no concrete proposals have emerged in the run-up to the summit starting Tuesday. Emerging economies have, however, discussed expanding trade in their own currencies to reduce their reliance on the buck. At a meeting of BRICS foreign ministers in June, South Africa's Naledi Pandor said the bloc's new development bank will seek alternatives to the current internationally traded currencies, a euphemism for the dollar. Pandor was sitting alongside Russia's Sergei Lavrov and China's Ma Zhaozhou. representatives of two countries that are especially eager to weaken America's international financial clout. The BRICS grouping dates to 2009. Originally, it was just BRIC, a term coined by Goldman Sachs economist Jim O'Neill to refer to the rising economies of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. South Africa joined in 2010, adding the S to the name. More than 20 countries, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Venezuela, have expressed interest in joining BRICS. In 2015, the BRIC countries launched the New Development Bank, an alternative to the U.S. and European-dominated International Monetary Fund and World Bank. Developing nations are itching to loosen the grip of Western dominance and open the door to a new world order. They had to phrase it like that, didn't they? Where the East commands equal, if not greater, influence, said Martin Sempa, a Ugandan political activist who has defended a law Uganda passed this year prescribing the death penalty for some homosexual acts. The legislation prompted the World Bank to announce this month that it was halting new lending to the East African country. Critics in the developing world are especially uneasy about America's willingness to use the dollar's global influence to impose financial sanctions against adversaries, as it did to Russia after the invasion of Ukraine last year. They also complain that fluctuations in the dollar can destabilize their economies. A rising dollar, for instance, can cause chaos abroad by drawing investment out of other countries. It also increases the cost of repaying loans denominated in dollars and buying imported products, which are often priced in dollars. Once again, world reserve currency. Kenyan President William Ruto has grumbled this year about Africa's dependence on the dollar and the economic fallout from its ups and downs. While the Kenyan shilling plunges in value, he's urged African leaders to join a fledgling Pan-African payment system that uses local currencies in a push to encourage more trade. How is U.S. dollars part of the trade between Djibouti and Kenya? Why, he asked at a meeting to applause. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has supported a common currency for commerce within the South American bloc, Mercosur, and for trade among BRICS nations. Why does Brazil need the dollar to trade with China or Argentina? We can trade in our own currency, he told the reporters this month. But if the dollar's drawbacks are easily apparent, the alternatives to it are not. At the end of the day, if you want to keep your reserves safe, you've got to put it in the dollar, said Daniel Bradlow, a senior research fellow at the University of Pretoria, and a lawyer specializing in international finance. You're going to need to borrow in dollars. Everybody can see all the problems with doing this, but if there was an alternative, people would use it. As it stands, 96% of trade in the Americas from 1999 to 2019 was invoiced in dollars. 74% of trade in Asia, and 79% everywhere else outside of Europe, which has the euro, according to calculations by U.S. Federal Reserve researchers. Still, the dollar's hold on global commerce has loosened somewhat in recent years as banks, businesses, and investors have turned to the euro and China's yuan. I said that, didn't I? I mentioned the yuan. But 24 years after the euro was introduced, the world's number 2 currency still does not rival the dollar for international gravitas. The dollar is used in 3 times as many foreign exchange transactions as the euro, Harvard University economist Jeffrey Frankel said in a study last month, and the yuan is limited by Beijing's refusal to let the currency trade freely in world markets. This is true. The Chinese government won't let they say it's worth this much. They don't let it just go and find its level. They say, nope, our yuan is worth this much. And you can't do that. None of the alternatives to the dollar managed to get to the dominance level, said Mihaela Papa, senior fellow at Tufts University Fletcher School of Global Affairs. So the idea that now, overnight, you will have a new BRICS currency that would cause a major upheaval, it takes time, it takes trust. I see this path as very long. Once again, it's all because people are trading or buying oil with American dollars. It's sold and bought in U.S. dollars. This is why. The dollar still has its supporters. In Argentina, Javier Milei, who emerged from primary voting Monday as the front-runner presidential candidate in October's general election, is calling for the dollar to replace the country's embattled peso. I wonder if he was supported by somebody from the U.S. to win his election. That'd be interesting to see. In Zimbabwe, Lovemore Mutenha's liquor store collapsed when hyperinflation hit in 2008. He only managed to resuscitate the business when the country abandoned the local currency for a basket of currencies dominated by the dollar. The US dollar has given us our life back. We can't do without it, said Mutenha, 49, said in the working-class suburb of Warren Park near the capital, Harare. How can one budget with the Zimbabwe dollar that is always changing in value? It is not stable, and we have been burnt before. In 2019, the government reintroduced the Zimbabwean currency and banned foreign currencies in local transactions. But the revamped Zimbabwe dollar floundered. US dollars kept trading in the black market, and the government lifted the ban. Now 80% of the transactions in the country are in US dollars. Finance Minister Thuli Ncube often pleads with people to embrace the local currency, but even government workers clamor to be paid in US dollars, arguing that almost all service providers accept only the greenback. Prosper Chimbambara, an economic analyst in Harare, said the US dollar has always had a stabilizing effect. But Zimbabwe's economy, which has little industry, low investment, few exports, and high debts, can't attract enough dollars to meet the needs of everyday commerce. It's led to a niche business on the streets of the capital. Vendors mend worn out or shredded $1 notes for a small fee. Yeah, so it might be China that comes out as the world reserve currency. We'll have to see. I know they want it. Let's see. Lana Payne's Year of Action, Unifor's President on Workers' Window of Opportunity. Canadian fintech valuations hit pandemic-era levels as investment sinks. A tanker believed to hold sanctioned Iran oil starts offloading near Texas despite Tehran threats. What is this about? Just like to say hello to you all out there, everyone on Rumble and Kick, and of course YouTube. I'm glad you're here. Let us continue. A tanker, yes, we went through that. Dubai, United Arab Emirates, an oil tanker long suspected of carrying sanctioned Iranian crude oil, offloaded its cargo near Texas on Sunday. Tracking data showed, even as Tehran has threatened to target shipping in the Persian Gulf over it. Ship tracking data analyzed by the Associated Press showed the Marshall Islands flagged Suez Rajan began the hours-long ship-to-ship transfer of its oil to another tanker, the MR Euphrates, near Galveston, some 70 kilometers southeast of Houston. The fate of the cargo aboard the Suez Rajan has become mired in the wider tensions between the U.S. and the Islamic Republic. Even as Tehran and Washington work toward a trade of billions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets in South Korea for the release of 5 Iranian Americans held in Tehran, Iran has been trying to evade sanctions and continue selling its oil abroad. While the U.S. and its allies have been seizing cargoes since 2019 after the country's nuclear deal allowing the trade collapsed. Already, Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard has warned that those involved in offloading the Suez Rajan cargo should expect to be struck back. The U.S. Navy has increased its presence steadily in recent weeks in the Mideast, sending the troop and aircraft carrying USS Bataan through the Strait of Hormuz in recent days and considering putting armed personnel on commercial ships traveling through the strait to stop Iran from seizing additional ships. The Los Angeles-based private equity firm Oaktree Capital Management, which owned the vessel up until late May, repeatedly declined to comment publicly. Greek firm Empire Navigation, which operates the vessel, did not respond to requests for comment. An email sent to Alma Maritime Limited, the ship's new owner, bounced back, and a telephone number listed its name rang unanswered. The saga over the Suez Rajan began in February 2022 when the group United Against Nuclear Iran said it suspected the tanker carried oil from Iran's Karg Island, its main oil distribution terminal in the Persian Gulf. 4 months, the ship sat in the South China Sea off the northeast coast of Singapore before suddenly sailing to the Gulf of Mexico without explanation. Analysts believe the vessel's cargo likely has been seized by American officials, though there were still no public court documents early Sunday involving the Suez Rajan. In the meantime, Iran has seized 2 tankers near the Strait of Hormuz, including one with cargo for U.S. oil major Chevron Corp. In July, the top commander of the Revolutionary Guard's naval arm threatened further action against anyone offloading the Suez Rajan, with the state media linking the recent seizures to the cargo's fate. We hereby declare that we would hold any oil company that sought to unload our crude from the vessel responsible. We also hold America responsible, Rear Admiral Alireza Hansgiri said at the time. The era of hit and run is over, and if they hit, they should expect to be struck back. Iran's mission to the United Nations did not respond to a request comment over the offloading of the Suez Rajan. The state-run IRNA news agency acknowledged this AP story, but did not elaborate. Western-backed naval organizations in the Persian Gulf in recent days also warned of an increased risk of ship seizures from Iran around the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers saw it regain its ability to sell oil openly on the international market, but in 2018, then President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from the accord and reimposed American sanctions. That slammed the door on much of Iran's lucrative crude oil trade, a major engine for its economy and its government. It also began a cat-and-mouse hunt for Iranian oil cargo, as well as a series of escalating attacks attributed to Iran since 2019. The delay in offloading the Suez Rajan cargo has become a political issue as well for the Biden administration, as the ship had sat for months in the Gulf of Mexico, possibly due to companies being worried about the threat from Iran. In a letter dated Wednesday, a group of Democratic and Republican U.S. senators asked the White House for an update on what was happening with the ship's cargo, estimated to be worth at some $56 million. They said the money could go towards the U.S. Victims of State-Sponsored Terrorism Fund, which compensates those affected by the September 11th attacks, the 1979 Iran hostage crisis, and other militant assaults. We owe it to these American families to enforce our sanctions, the letter read. Republican Senator Yoni Ernst of Iowa said the letter's co-signers said in a statement Sunday that no foreign adversary should question America's strength. Oh my God, the arrogance. Jeez. To ensure this never happens again, the Biden administration must enforce our existing sanctions, stop greenlighting the Guard's terrorism and hostage diplomacy, and end this posture of appeasement to a nation that chants death to America, she said. The U.S. Treasury has said Iran's oil smuggling revenue supports the Quds Force, the expeditionary unit of the Revolutionary Guard that operates across the Mideast. Clara Jungmann, the chief of staff of United Against Nuclear Iran, praised the transfer finally happening. By depriving the Guard of crucial resources, we strike a blow against terrorism that targets not only American citizens but also our global allies and partners, Jungmann told the AP. On Sunday, Iranian state media released a video dated Thursday that showed the USS Bataan with small Guard fastboats trailing it as it traveled through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf through which 20% of the world's oil passes. One portion appeared to have been taken from a drone above the Bataan, while another claimed that the Guard hailed the Bataan over the radio and threatened to open fire on an American helicopter if it entered Iranian airspace. Commander Rick Chernitzer, a spokesman for the U.S. Navy Bahrain-based Fifth Fleet, acknowledged to the AP that Bataan had transited through the strait in recent days. A photograph earlier released by the Navy showed F-35 fighter jets providing cover for the Bataan and the USS Carter Hall, a landing ship accompanying it. The U.S. Navy will continue to fly and sail where international law allows, Chernitzer said. Okay, well, looks like you guys are getting oil no matter what, eh? What a mess that whole Mideast thing is, anyway. No profit right now. Trucking industry facing leaner times as consumer demand drops. Study reveals how much carbon damage would cost corporations if they paid for their emissions. Yeah, this is why it's such a stupid idea to charge for carbon. The world's corporations produce so much climate change pollution it could eat up about 40% of their profits if they had to pay damages for it, according to a study by economists of nearly 15,000 public companies. That's why it's just a scam by the government to take money away from the people. That's all it is. Just a big, giant scam. Hey, Veritax, how you doing? Nice to see you. Just looking through the articles here, see what's going on in the manufacturing world. What's this say? Energy interests and environmentalists fight Biden oil lease plan from different sides. Global inflation pressures could become harder to manage in coming years. Economy solid growth could require more Fed hikes to fight inflation. I don't know. Is it solid growth in the economy? Like, how are things doing down there? In America, I mean. Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The continued strength of the U.S. economy could require further interest rate increases. That's going to hurt a lot of people. These interest rates going up, a lot of people are going to get hurt. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said Friday in a closely watched speech that also highlighted the uncertain nature of the economic outlook. Powell noted that the economy has been growing faster than expected and that consumers have kept spending briskly. Trends that could keep inflation pressures high. He reiterated the Fed's determination to keep its benchmark rate elevated until inflation is reduced to 2%. We are attentive to signs that the economy may not be cooling as expected, Powell said. We are prepared to raise rates further if appropriate and intend to hold policy at a restrictive level until we are confident that inflation is moving sustainably down towards our objective. Although inflation has moved down from its peak, a welcome development, it remains too high. Powell's speech at an annual conference of central bankers in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, highlighted the uncertainties surrounding the economy and the complexity of the Fed's response to it. Marked a contrast to his remarks here a year ago, where he bluntly warned that the Fed would continue its campaign of sharp rate hikes to rein in spiking prices. When it comes to another rate hike, the chair still has very much has his finger on the trigger, even if it is a bit less itchy than last year, said Omar Sharif, chief economist at Inflation Insights. Hello, Joseph Dredd. Good to see you. We've got a judge in the chat. Behave yourselves, everyone. The judge is here. Yeah, I'm just going over this article here talking about inflation and how the Federal Reserve is thinking about raising rates again, and now I think that's going to hurt a lot of people if they keep doing that. Substantially higher loan rates, a direct result of the Fed's rate hikes, have made it harder for Americans to afford a home or a car, or for businesses to finance expansions. At the same time, items like rent, restaurant meals, and other services are still getting costlier. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, has remained elevated despite the Fed's streak of 11 rate hikes beginning in March 2022. So this is also their fault because they're the ones that cut rates too. They were the ones that were almost at 0% for their loan rate. It's crazy. Like how did they get away with that? But that was during the Obama administration. They didn't want him to be seen as a bad president, so they're like, oh, we better cut our rates here. Everyone will like that, but we're going to pay for it later. Zero Hedge had an article about how there are no cars that are at or under 20K. Oh, man. Yeah, that sucks. The overall economy has nonetheless powered ahead. Hiring has remained healthy, confounding economists who had forecast that spikes in rates would cause widespread layoffs and a recession. Yeah, they hoped it would. Consumer spending keeps growing at a healthy rate, and the U.S. unemployment rate stands exactly where it did when Powell spoke last year at 3.5%, barely above a half-century low. Yeah, but do they include the people that have even stopped looking for work? He is still very concerned how rapid the economy is growing because that does actually mean all else equal, we need higher interest rates just to be restrictive, said Diane Swonk, chief economist at KPMG. In his speech, Powell did not mention the possibility that the Fed will eventually cut interest rates. Earlier this year, many on Wall Street had expected rate cuts by early next year. Now most traders envision no interest rate cuts before mid-2024 at the earliest. They don't have to. They can just keep it. The worst, stop cutting them back down. You're just making it worse for everybody. You have to keep them up. Oh, under Obama, lots of people gave up looking for work. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Powell said the central bank's policymakers believe their key rate is high enough to restrain the economy and cool growth, hiring, and inflation, but he acknowledged that it's hard to know how high borrowing costs must be to slow the economy. And thus there is always uncertainty about how effectively the Fed's policies are in reducing inflation. Fed's officials will proceed carefully as we decide whether to tighten further or instead to hold the policy rate constant and await further data, he said. Since Powell spoke at last summer's Jackson Hole conference, the Fed has raised its benchmark rate to a 22-year high, 5.4%, from a peak of 9.1% in June 2022. The Fed has no control over the economy. They ran out of the road a long time ago. There you go. Yeah, I totally believe that. I know they think they do, but the only thing they can do is print more money and buy more bonds. It's nuts. It's crazy. I don't know how they get away with it. In June 2022, inflation has slowed to 3.2%, though still above the Fed's 2% target. Powell acknowledged the decline in inflation, which he called very good, considering prices excluding the volatile food and energy categories have begun to ease. Have they, though? Like, he's saying food and energy. That's big. That's a big slice of everything. Energy includes gas for your car, heating oil, natural gas, whatever you use to heat your house with. They also aren't using the same measure for inflation that they used back in the 70s, 80s. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, of course, because if it shows that inflation is too high, they're like, oh, well, we got to remove this from the equation. That way it doesn't look as bad. Fool the idiot masses, right? It goes along here. But 2 months of good data, he added, are only the beginning of what it will take to build confidence in that inflation is moving down sustainably towards our goal. In June, when the Fed's 18 policymakers last issued their quarterly projections, they predicted that they would raise rates once more this year. That expectation might have changed, though, in light of milder inflation readings the government has issued in recent weeks. The officials will update their interest rate projections when they next meet, September 19th to 20th. Okay, so that's in 2 weeks. Some Fed officials, including John Williams, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, a top official in the interest rate setting committee, have suggested that the central bank may be nearing the end of its rate hikes. I don't know. I think they should do it once more and then just hold it there. Don't cut it. Just keep it steady. Many economists have postponed or reversed their earlier forecast for a U.S. recession. Optimism that the Fed will pull off a difficult soft landing in which we could manage to reduce inflation to its target level without causing a steep recession has risen. Many traders in the financial markets envision not only a soft landing, but an acceleration of growth. Those expectations have helped fuel a surge in bond yields, notably for the 10-year Treasury note, which heavily influences long-term mortgage rates. Accordingly, the average fixed rate on a 30-year mortgage has reached 7.23%, the highest level in 22 years. Auto loans and credit card rates have also shot higher, which could weaken borrowing and consumer spending, the lifeblood of the economy. Does it really weaken someone's spending, though, when do they really care what their interest rate on their credit card is? I know there's people out there that don't. They just don't care. They just spend, whatever. If they would stop spending, that would reduce inflation, but they don't want to do that. Yes. Yeah. The way I've learned it, and I've studied a little bit of financial history and such, it's the inflation is the size of the money pool that you have. So when your pool of money increases, it means it's worth less. Like the good itself doesn't change in price. It's the value of what you can buy with your money. Right? Let's take comic books, for instance. A comic book from 1940, 32 pages, cost 10 cents. A comic book nowadays, same page count, 32 pages, $6. What happened? Did the comic book change? No. Same pages, made of the same stuff. What happened is the value, the worth of the currency worth went down. Whatever what you have, your dollar doesn't buy as much because it's worthless. There's more of it around. If there was less money in the pool, it would be worth more. And also, if it was backed by a precious metal, that would do it as well. But that's just me ambling on about stuff that I've just heard. Some economists say they think that much higher long-term rates in the bond market might lessen the need for further Fed hikes because by slowing growth, those long-term rates would help cool inflation pressures. Indeed, many economists say they think the Fed's July rate increase will prove to be its last. Even if the Fed imposes no further hikes, it may feel compelled to keep its benchmark rate elevated well into the future to try to contain inflation. This would introduce a new threat. Keeping interest rates at high levels indefinitely would risk weakening the economy so much as to trigger a downturn. It could also endanger many banks by reducing the value of bonds they own, a dynamic that helped cause the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and two other large lenders last spring. Because the government isn't in the business for protecting the little guy, the wealthy donate more, own more property. If property values deflated, they'd lose so much money. Yeah, you got a good point, Veritex. You're just worried about Argentina or Weimar type inflation. Yeah, where your money is worth nothing. Where it's been devalued so much that it's like it takes $100 to buy a loaf of bread. Yeah, no, I get it. I don't want that either. Used car market faces supply crunch in aftermath of supply chain woes. Biden is old. Trump is corrupt. AP Nork poll has ominous signs for both impossible 2024 rematch. I'm getting tired of hearing about this. Like I know, and I know it's just gonna ramp up with even more rhetoric and more media circus. But I honestly I don't care anymore. I really don't. I'm not even American. I don't even care about American politics. You know, I got my own idiot to deal with. This guy up here, this guy's a nutcase. We really need to get him out of there. Unifor, Detroit 3 auto workers vote for strike mandate, mirrors U.S. counterpart. Ooh. Tesla is allowing no hands driving with autopilot for longer periods. U.S. regulators have questions. Oh, you get your news from Citizen Free Press or Zero Hedge. Okay, I gotta make note of that, because I like to get my stuff not from the mainstream media as well. Drinking some tea here with some honey and lemon because old Pop's got a bit of a sore throat. Unifor targets Ford Motors as lead company in auto contract talks. Okay, so it's that time of year now. Hyundai and LG will invest an additional $2 billion into making batteries at Georgia electric vehicle plant. Wow, good for them. People in Georgia should be happy. Manitoba Crown Corporation nixes plan to give some licenses without road tests. Okay, yeah, and for those of you who don't know, a Crown Corporation just means it's a corporation that's owned by the government. Why would you give licenses without road tests? Like, what's the matter with you? Give your head a shake. U.S. application for jobless claims inch back down as companies hold on to their employees. Oh, are they doing that? Can you guys let me know? Are companies trying to hold on to their employees more in the U.S.? There were some of those self-driving cars in San Francisco. That's the software glitched and they caused a traffic jam. Ah, there you go. I'm not getting a self-driving car anytime soon. I'm not getting an electric car either. There's no way it's going to work up here very well in the wintertime. They want to get licenses to illegals so they can vote in election. Oh. But this is in Manitoba. Nah, I guess it makes sense. Why would you give licenses? Was that a road the test that requires you to do more to leave a massive parking lot? Yeah, I don't know. I guess we can look into it and see what they say about it. Winnipeg. Manitoba Crown Corporation has backed down from a plan that would have let some people get their driver's licenses without road tests. Manitoba Public Insurance now says it has enough private driving instructors to fill the gap left by its striking unionized workers. Oh, that's what it's about. Yeah. They walked off the job on Monday. So they're just trying to break the union. The announcement Thursday came 3 hours after the corporation's board chair, Ward Keith, said the plan would proceed and could be done without compromising road safety. The change was a result of an overwhelming response from the driver education community, MPI said in a release. MPI is pleased with the positive response it has received from its driver education partners across the province and their willingness to assist MPI in resuming driver testing services for our mutual customers. Under the earlier plan, graduates of the driver education program, which is aimed primarily at high school students but also available to others, would have been able to get a Class 5 license, the common license that applies to passenger vehicles, and skip the road test while the strike continues. I see. And maybe they would send them back afterwards when the strike ends. I don't know if that's what they call it in the U.S., but yeah, I have a Class 5. Just for regular car. Other applicants would also have continued to undergo a road test handled by certified driving instructors brought in for the work. He said earlier that foregoing tests could be done without compromising road safety, because the driver's education program includes hours of practice on the road in addition to in-class instruction. Political science professor Karine Levasseur at the University of Manitoba has said that the idea appeared to violate provincial regulations. The idea was also criticized by some driving instructors who said graduates of the program need a lot of road practice before getting their license. I teach driver's ed kids, and I would say 80% of the kids, maybe even more, are not ready to go on the road without further training, said Nina Bedi, a private driving instructor in Winnipeg. Some of them are not sure about understanding the traffic signals, and most of them, it's their reflexes, like if something happens, anything unusual, out of the ordinary happens, they don't know how to react. Yeah, but that's everybody. And not sure about them understanding traffic signals, they just have to read their book. Read your book, know what the signs mean, and your first reaction in any type of situation is to hit the brakes. That's automatically what happens. People should, most of the time, they're going to hit the brakes. MPI said in a statement that its registrar of motor vehicles has the legal authority to waive testing requirements, and this option may be reconsidered in the future should the strike action be prolonged, and in that event, that using MPI certified driver education instructors cannot adequately address current and future demand for driver testing services. The strike of some 1,700 workers began after contract talks broke down over wages. Once again, it's over wages. He said the corporation had offered monetary benefits of up to 17% over 4 years, but the Manitoba government and General Employees Union said that figure is misleading because it includes non-wage benefits. What about VR driving simulators in schools there? Yeah, hey, give it a try. They're always praising about how great VR is. And I think even commercial airline pilots use a VR simulator. So, yeah, you do have a good point there, Joseph. Once again, the judge comes up with a verdict. The progressive conservative government facing an election set for October 3rd has faced a summer of labor discontent in the public sector. Workers at Crown-owned Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries went on strike earlier over wages, and many government-run stores were closed before a settlement was reached last week. Another branch of the MGU, representing 11,000 civil servants, announced this week is preparing to hold a strike vote. The government said Thursday it has offered the civil servants wage hikes 2% each year for 4 years, as well as benefit improvements and a signing bonus. I mean, 2% a year, that's pretty good. And a signing bonus? Like, come on. Well, it looks like they're taking the Manitoba government to task this year. Oh well. Ontario could help its auto industry capitalize on growing electric school bus demand. Millions more workers will be entitled to overtime pay under a proposed Biden administration rule. Oh man, that's going to make business owners angry. Right? Biden at it again. Or I shouldn't say he's at it again. He doesn't know how to do anything. The Biden administration proposed a new rule Wednesday that would make 3.6 million more U.S. workers eligible for overtime pay, the most generous such increase in decades. The rule revives an Obama-era effort that faced pushback from business leaders and Republicans and was ultimately scuttled in court. Business groups, labor advocates, and liberal lawmakers have pushed the Biden administration to take the fight back up, arguing that overtime protections have been sharply eroded over the decades by wage stagnation and inflation. The proposed regulation unveiled by the Department of Labor would require employers to pay overtime to salary workers who are in executive, administrative, and professional roles but make less than $1,059 a week, or $55,000 a year for full-time employees. That salary threshold is up from $35,000 level that has been in place since 2019, when the Trump administration raised it from $23,000 in a more modest increase than President Obama's earlier proposal. The rule, which is subject to a public commentary period and wouldn't take effect for months, would have the biggest impact on retail, food, hospitality, manufacturing, and other industries where many managerial employees meet the new threshold. Lurking, playing Sea of Stars, it's just too fun. You have yourself an excellent time, Godzillionaire. Everyone's favorite kaiju, playing Sea of Stars. I've heard from workers again and again about working long hours for no extra pay, all while earning low salaries that don't come anywhere close to compensating them for all their sacrifices, said Secretary of Labor Julie Su. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, almost all U.S. hourly workers are entitled to overtime pay after 40 hours a week, at no less than time and a half their regular rates. But salary workers who perform executive, administrative, or professional roles are exempt from the requirement unless they earn below a certain level. I didn't know that. I always thought it was you. Well, maybe it's different in Canada here, but if you're on salary, that's it. You're on salary. You don't get paid any less. You don't get paid any more. So no matter how hard you work, but then again, most of those are in management positions. You're a supervisor. You're not on the wrenches. You sit behind a desk. You're a plant manager. You sit behind a desk. You talk on meetings. You do all those sorts of that stuff. You're not doing hard physical labor. So, lots of companies in the U.S. hire people at a salary and you don't get overtime. Okay. Let's see here. The left-leaning Economic Policy Institute has estimated that about 15% of full-time salaried employees are entitled to overtime pay under the Trump-era policy. The new rule would almost double that to nearly 30%, according to Labor Department figures. Oh, that's going to make companies really angry. That's still fewer than the more than 60% of salaried workers who were entitled to overtime pay in the 1970s, according to the Institute. The overtime rule has been sporadically updated over the past decades, with Trump increase being the first since 2004. The Labor Department's new rule attempts to change the pattern by adopting automatic increases to the salary threshold every 3 years. And big surprise, they're doing it now. An election's coming up. So why don't we try to give people more money, or make it seem like we are, and then they can vote for us again, right? I could see that happening. And it goes along. Anyway, let's move along here. This is from the Skilled Trades College of Canada. How to get into trades, becoming a skilled tradesperson. I don't say tradesperson, I say tradesman. It covers both men and women, so I don't care. The maximum unemployment payout, depending upon what you made in Virginia right now, is $378 a week. During the pandemic manatees, people got an additional $600 a week. Wow. Yeah, so they were doing pretty well. But yeah, Veritak, get your son in here, or they were saying one of your kids wanted to learn about the skilled trades. So first thing you do, find a trade you like. You finally decide you want to pursue a career in trades. Great. Now, if you're wondering what trade is best to get into, all you need to do is find a trade that best suits your interests, abilities, and life goals. It could be baking, electrical, styling, plumbing, or even home renovation. With skilled trades, you can earn from a skill or hobby you are very passionate about. There are over 400 designated trades in Canada, but only a number of them are considered Red Seal trades. Red Seal just means you can practice all across the country. Otherwise, you're just stuck in your one province that you live in. So not getting a Red Seal is okay. Red Seal trades are designated trades for which you earn a Red Seal endorsement after training. A Red Seal endorsement is a seal on your certificate that indicates you have passed the Red Seal exam. Passing the Red Seal exam means you have the appropriate knowledge and skills to practice your trade, and with the endorsement, you can use your certificate to work across Canada. Yeah, I just said that. Number two. So number one, find a trade. Number two, prepare for your apprenticeship. To be an apprentice, you have to meet certain requirements. Depending on the province and trade, this might include being at least 16 to 18 years old, having legal permission to work in Canada, meeting the minimum educational requirements, and passing the entrance exam for your chosen apprenticeship program. And they have a link there for your approved apprenticeship program. Electrical pre-apprenticeship, plumbing pre-apprenticeship, intro to home renovation. Oh, yeah, okay, so they only have a few of them. I was hoping they'd show a lot more. Once you've confirmed that you meet the requirements, you can sign up for an apprenticeship with your local apprenticeship office. If you don't have an employer yet, you can still sign up for an apprenticeship, but you'll need to earn on-the-job hours to complete it. The sooner you find an employer, the sooner you can accumulate the required on-the-job hours. Once registered, you'll be assigned an apprentice ID, which you will need when you register for classes, schedule your exams, and apply for employment insurance. Because what happens is when you go to school, your employer will lay you off. You'll apply for employment insurance. That way you can support yourself without any financial hardship while you're going to school, with the promise that you're going to return back to work for your employer. So, number one, find a trade. Number two, prepare. Number three, apply for apprenticeship opportunities. Apprenticeship opportunities will allow individuals with prior experience or a pre-apprenticeship program certification to earn while training. Depending on the trade, apprenticeship programs can range from 1 to 5 years and include in-class learning, which will comprise up to 20% of your entire training. You can find opportunities on popular job boards and on Canada's Job Bank. So yes, when you go to school, you will probably be about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the program you take. Mine was 8 weeks, so you get 2 months off work, which is nice. You don't have to get dirty. You don't have to worry about the government helps you out with employment insurance, and you just make sure you show up every day. Because if you miss a few days, they are going to want to know why. And if you don't have a good excuse, they are going to kick you out. That's how that goes. Doesn't matter if you paid for it. They're going to kick you out because you're obviously not serious about learning the trade. So I always liked it because it was 2 months off of having to go to work, and it was good. I was eager to learn. Number 4, register your training agreement. So yes, that'll be taken care of at your apprenticeship office. You'll just have to sign up. You and your employer will sign an agreement. Well, if it isn't Jake D! Hail, comrade. Nice to see you. Sounds suspiciously like work is occurring here? Oh, it's back to work today. Yes, indeed. After my nice vacation. It was nice. I got to ease back into it today. So, just so you're aware, I arrived, and you always expect that maybe something broke down, not a lot happened. It was great. They had a trouble with one pump that had seized up because of the heat. And the reason that is because when you pump sulfur, you have to pump it at like 315 degrees Fahrenheit. And if it goes hotter than that, it solidifies, and if it goes colder than that, it solidifies. Sulfur is really weird that way. So that's what happened to one of those pumps. I think they said it got a little hot. It seized up a bit. The rubber coupling came out of it. One of the guys who was mechanically inclined, he's been there a lot of years. He took it. He got a new coupling for it, put it together. They turned the heat down a little bit on it, and boom, the pump fired up, and it's working great. So that is what happened with that. Other than that, no major emergencies. I was just putting stuff away. Things that I've ordered had arrived, and just getting back into the swing of things, checking all my emails. You looked at your local community college, and some of them start this week and go until January. Some programs only go until October. Yeah, exactly. If it's like the one I went to, they'll have like specific intakes. They'll have it planned out. They'll be like, okay, we've got the January, February people, and then they'll have a little bit of a break, and then they'll go, okay, yeah, now we got the March, April intake, and then, the May, June. Excuse me, sorry. But yes, that is what it's like. And start training is number 5. So, number one, find a trade you like. Number 2, prepare for the apprenticeship. Make sure you have all these requirements. There's not very many of them. There's only 4. Number 3, apply for the apprenticeship. Number 4, register your training agreement. Number 5, start training. You will be required to attend and complete a combination of hands-on and classroom training for every level of your trade. In order to progress to more advanced levels, you will need to pass exams. There are 3 kinds. In-class exams, level exams, given at the end of every level of your trade, and final certification exams. Not all training programs include formal technical training and level exams, but if you choose one that includes them, and you've already completed a pre-employment program, you might not need to take a level 1 exam. Also, if your chosen trade does not require formal technical training, you can contact your local apprenticeship office to schedule and proceed with the final certification exam once you are ready. Number 6, claim your certificate. After you successfully finished your training and passed your certification exam, you'll be given a journey person certification or journeyman certification, or a certificate of qualification if you enrolled in a Red Seal program. Completion of your training and exams will entitle you to work not only within your province or territory, but anywhere within Canada. Experienced tradespeople who have been certified in Canada can get certified by applying to challenge the certificate of their trade. Qualified applicants will be required to complete all program requirements and pass the assessments within 24 months of approval to prove that they indeed have the knowledge and skills to practice. Start training now at Skilled Trades College of Canada, or wherever you live. It doesn't have to be the Trades College of Canada. Whatever state you're in, whatever, city you're by, get on the internet, look it up, see what is close by you, see what their rating is, see if they have a good reputation, because you do want to go to a place where you're going to actually learn something. And this is something you can take with you the rest of your life. You're not going to be hindered by anyone. No one can take it away from you. Once you have it, you have it. and I was going to show you. There's a list. So you can find your skilled trades, but they're in construction, transportation, manufacturing and industrial, services sector, information and digital technology, which I believe our own Jake D has done. I believe he's got an IT certification, if I'm not mistaken. Here's the top in-demand skilled trades by region. This is Canada, of course, but I'm sure there's something equivalent to the United States, where most of my viewers are, and I appreciate that. In Alberta, automotive service technician, carpenter, cook, industrial mechanic. That's my trade. Painter and decorator, welder. Those are all in demand. In Atlantic Canada, so the Maritimes, carpenter, cook, hairstylist, heavy-duty equipment technician, industrial electrician, welder. If you're in, well, let's check. Well, Ontario, cook, heavy-duty equipment technician, industrial electrician, painter and decorator, welder. Welder seems to be pretty common. Yukon and Northwest Territories, so way up here. Heavy-duty equipment technician, heavy equipment operator, electrician, welder. So yeah, there is so much you can get into. You can look it up. There's lists of skilled trades everywhere. And there's bound to be something for everyone. Moving along. Let's see. How about picture time? Picture time, picture time. You know the Yukon from the Discovery Gold Rush show? Yeah. Yeah, is that where it takes place? Up in the Yukon? Let's see here. I'm just gonna grab some pictures here. Should be able to. There we go. Alaska and the Yukon, yes. All right. This is from a valve. Sorry, this is an actuator on a valve. And as you can see, there should be some bolts in here to hold it on, but they've been sheared off. There they are. I managed to pull some of them out. And you can see they should be a lot longer, but they're not. And they are covered in grease and poo, because that is what flows through that valve. Just for those that don't know, I spent like the last 15 years in waste management. Not the company waste management, but working at like a municipal waste composting facility. There's the indicator. You can see there the arrow that points to whether the valve is open or closed. So that came off, had to come off as well. There's another shot of it. You can see they're not quite lined up. So what I have to do is work it back and see if I can get those broken off pieces out of there. Whether it's with a screw extractor or just by working them out. If they're not tightened in too tight, you usually get a hammer and a pin punch and maneuver them around and try to back them out. There's another shot there of them. Those are snapped off all right. I was taking pictures of the size of it and the class, right? So 12-inch diameter, class 600. So that's a pretty big valve. That thing is quite heavy duty because of the pressures it has to deal with. And as Godzillionaire likes to note, I get a lot of good flash on there, so you can't read it. I know he likes those kinds of pictures. And also, you always catalog the name of what things are. It helps you. You always take pictures. When you're out on the job site and you're in maintenance, you have a camera with you. And I don't just mean a camera phone. I mean just a regular camera. I use a Canon, and it does so well. Can take video, can take pictures. Yeah, like I said, catalog things. You can always pick up serial numbers, all the information you need. Because when you call people, like if this is Rotork controls, when I call them, they're gonna want the serial number, the wiring diagram. They're gonna want all that information. So always take lots of pictures. And sometimes you have to turn the flash off. And different angles. So as you can see here, I managed to get 6 of them out and put 6 out of 8 of them back in. So to me, that's a win. Yeah, I would have liked to have gotten the other 2 out, but they were very difficult to get out. I had a hell of a time. I used a drill and a screw extractor, but to no avail. It was not having it. But I was able to get the 6 of those out and put in brand new ones. Hopefully a little stronger, something that won't get broken as easily. So as you can see here, there's the valve, the green body. That's the valve. That's what lets the and they call it here, right, biosolids. That's a fancy name for poop. And it goes into this tank here, and this is the valve so the actuator is this thing driven by an electric motor, and it spins the actuator. You only got to spin it 90 degrees to open it up. More flash. There we go. Sometimes you got to turn the flash off. Sometimes you have to spin them around. There we go. Oh. You guys ever see what happens when you overfill a silo? So we've had 2 silos. One on the right and one on the left. One on the right had no problem. One on the left, the sensor that detects the height of the level indicator, it failed. And so it just kept filling and filling and filling until it flowed over the edge. So that's the top of it there. And it also came out and it fell down below. So there's a big, heavy mess on the roof now. I wasn't in operations. I'm in maintenance. You got to get some operation guys to clean that up, because that's not my job. I went to school to fix stuff, not push a shovel around. So yeah, I tried to get a couple of good shots of that. Good for a laugh. Like, look at that. That's a big pile right there. This is the makeup air unit inside the building with those 2 silos. Oh, what's going on here? What's going on, Restream? You're saying you're connecting to my channels. What's going on here? Guys, is everything okay over there, guys? It says to activate chat, enable my channels. Come on, man, don't do this to me. Come on. Okay. Alright. I see myself. White screen? Okay, things okay now? Did I lose a bunch of guys? Okay. Okay. Thanks, Joseph. Need somebody to make sure things are going okay. Yeah, OBS is fine. It says it's kicking out some good kilobytes. Okay, anyway. Good stuff. Sometimes you have to crawl inside this makeup air unit to grease the bearing because it has no access on the other side. So you gotta try to squeeze in there. Obviously, you lock it out first. But you squeeze in there and you go to grease the other side of the bearing, which is right here, and you can't get to. I tried to show my superiors that. It's like, listen, we can't get in here. Can we cut an access hole in here or something? And nothing ever happened. There's another shot of it there. Not very much room to get at, that's for sure. Oh. Okay, so when people complain about a hydraulic leak, you have to look very carefully. You know, stuff might look okay, right? That looks okay, but you gotta look closer. Even the smallest little break of a backup ring will cause there to be a leak. And that is what happened to this thing. Right? This guy should be held in here a little tighter, like this one. Or this one at the top, but this middle one. And it's got to be the right strength of O-ring, too. You can't just grab any O-ring. It's got to be one with a high durometer number. And this is where it came out of here. So you got to make sure that this is all clean. No debris in it. Because hydraulics are very high pressure and they're very finicky when it comes to working and having leaks. So everything has to be spotlessly clean. So that is what this is all about. I made sure to catalog this because I was trying to find out what was wrong with it and why it was leaking. And yes, it was missing an O-ring. You just got to be careful when you are dealing with stuff like that because it's very easy to miss. Very easy to miss, and it's you're under high pressure. High pressure, 3,000 psi, 4,000 psi. Definitely have to be careful when dealing with hydraulics. Otherwise, you'll pay with a injection injury. And I'm not going to look it up, but if you want to look up in hydraulic injection injury, go ahead. It is the ugliest, most disgusting thing you'll see, and it'll make you never want to have one. So yeah, what are we doing here? Are we getting my chat back here? Things going okay? Sometimes wonder. Okay. Checking YouTube. Okay. I don't like this restream. I don't know what you're doing. Causing me nothing but angst here. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed Trades Talk Tuesday. I was happy to talk with you guys about some of the stories that were out there and about the shortage of the trades. It's very important. We need people to step up. I'm not going to be out there forever. I'm planning on retirement too, so we need people to step into the roles of learning the skilled trades. very important. You know, you'll have a job for life, and you know, you'll make good money, and it's very rewarding because, you know, if you do something that you enjoy, which is what I do enjoy, making things better, repairing things, making them better. Oh, and what else did we chat about? We just chatted about yeah, and showing you guys pictures and such. I like showing you guys pictures, stuff like that. I hope to have more pictures for you next week. I took some more pictures today of some of the jobs I'm working on, so I'm going to work on those, and hopefully by next week I'll have pictures to show you guys about some of the jobs I've completed. So I'm pretty excited about that. I hope you are too. Try to take some video while I'm at it. I know you guys like videos, so I always like to show some of the stuff that I've been a part of. And it's nice to be able to use your imagination. Sometimes you have to create things, you know, somebody will ask you to do a job and they'll be like, oh, can you do this? You know, and it's like, well, we're going to have to build that. Prototyping. All that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, I'll try this. I'll try, you know, try to do stuff like that. And that is very rewarding. You can walk by and say, you know what? I built that thing. Yeah, so I want to thank everyone that came out today. Like Veritax, and of course, the local resident judge of the chat, Joseph Dredd. And I know Jake D was out there. Jake D! And Godzillionaire, everyone's favorite kaiju. And anyone else that was lurking. You know, I appreciate it. If you were on Rumble or Kick, and of course the usual YouTube suspects, I really appreciate you guys coming out. Coming up, Saturday is game stream day. I'm hoping to finish Superstar Saga. This thing is so bloody hard. I mean, I'm trying my hardest to get this, to beat this last boss. I'm pretty sure it's the last boss, and man, oh man, it's throwing everything at me. I'm trying my best, but you know, it's just, man, it's just kicking my ass. But I'm gonna go at it again. And coming up on Sunday, sticking with the theme of back to school, there's going to be some more school anime, so I hope you're ready for that. Bell's going to ring, you got to get in your seat, and let's watch some school anime. So don't miss that, class. Don't be late. And then we come around full circle again to Trades Talk Tuesday, where I'll be here again, talking about the skilled trades. We'll talk about maybe the shortage of the skilled trades, and I'm definitely going to show you guys some new pictures of stuff on the job. And I don't know if you guys have seen any pictures when I'm moving rail cars, but maybe I can show some of those too, because that's pretty good. All right then. Until Saturday, everyone, I hope to see you there. I've been Pop, and I am signing off.